Tres. Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to a new program. Today we will talk a little about the independence of the US and Honduras. Hello, Yeimy. It's a pleasure to Revolution. And how did the American Revolution begin?
Hello and thank you, Milady. The American Revolution, also called the U.S. War of Independence, was the insurrection fought between 1775 and 1783, through which 13 of Great Britain's North American colonies throughout Britain, founded with the Declaration of Independence in 1776. On the ground, fighting in the American Revolution began with the skirmishes between British regulars and American provincials on April 19, 1775. 100 faced 77 local Minutemen, and then at Concord, where an American counterforce of 320 to 400 sent the British skirmishing. The British had come to Concord to seize the military stores of the colonists, who had been forward of the raid through efficient lines of communication.
Okay, and what were the causes of the American Revolution?
The American Revolution was principally caused by colonial opposition to British attempts to impose greater control over the colonies and to make them repay to Crown for its defense of them during the French and Indian War, to 1754 to 53. Britain did this primarily by imposing a series of deeply unpopular laws and taxes, the so-called Intolerable Acts. And other causes were the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party in 1773.
Okay, and which country fell on the side of the colonies during the American Revolution?
Until early in the 1778, the American Revolution was a civil war within the British Empire. But it became an international war as France in 1778 and Spain in 1779 joined the colonies against Britain. The Netherlands, which was engaged in its own war with Britain, provided financial support to the Americans as well as official recognition on their independence. The French Navy in particular played a key role in bringing about the British surrender at Yorktown, which effectively ended the war.
And how was the American Revolution a civil war?
In the early stages of the rebellion by the American colonies, most of them still saw themselves as English subjects who were being denied their rights as such. Taxation without representation is tyranny. James Otis reportedly said in protest of the lack of colonial representation in parliaments. What made the American Revolution look most like a civil war, thought was the reality that about 1/3 of the colonies, known as loyalists, continued to support and fought on the side of the crown.
Okay, Yeimy, what were the consequences of the independence of the United States?
The consequences were the French Revolution, both the influence of the Enlightenment and the example of the United States of the Revolution in France, and other consequence was the emancipatory process of Latin America. We already know a lot about the independence of the United States, but what about Honduras? When is Independence Day celebrated in Honduras? Creole.
Honduras celebrates its independence on September 15 because it's the date on which the Declaration of Independence was signed, and it took place in Guatemala City in 1821.
That's when its independence.
Okay, Honduras had been under Spain rule since 1823. One of the main causes of the conquest was because Honduras had, and they refused to develop Honduras. So resentment against Spanish rule had increased due to higher taxes to support Spain's fight against France.
Okay, and what were some independence methods that were carried out?
Okay, they made many demonstrations against the Spanish crown. For example, some people from La Pazuela, Comayagüela, and Jacaleapa, and demonstrated in protest against the system of United Provinces. until Honduras, along with the rest of the Central America, declared its independence from Spain. Sorry.
Oh, and what happened during the independence period?
During this period, Guatemala had the ambition to dominate Central America and wanted to retain all possible local authorities instead of handing them over to a central government. Liberals and the conservative persons, because the liberals wanted greater local autonomy and a restricted role for the church, and the conservative favored a more centralized government and a pro-clerical policy. And Honduras produced Morazan and Jose Cecilio del Valle.
Wow, and what happened?
Okay, in 1937, with the second term of Francisco Morazan as a president, a conservative uprising began in Guatemala, which caused the final dissolution of the United Provinces of Central America, the states that made up the Union as sovereign, free, and independent.
Okay, so thank you, Milady. It was a pleasure for me to be here and learn more about the independence of Honduras. Thank you so much.
Thank you too, Yeimy.